screen shared here. Christine, does that look good to you? Awesome. Well, first, I just have to say another thank you to Christian for partnering with us on that morning. We messaged as a team back and said, whoo, that was a big energy investment, a big emotional investment this morning. So we're actually going to get in. We did our bios earlier, but just to say it again, I'm Director of Education and Development at Becker's. We are an early learning materials and furniture vendor, and we get to create amazing resources for early childhood educators like you. And I'm joined by Christine Murray, who leads that product selection process for our team and helps us in creating these resources and professional development experiences. So I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to go and move their body. So we're actually going to go do that now. I'm going to invite you to have a little snack size exercise with me. This comes from our mindfulness, our self-care and wellness cards. So if you're sitting, I invite you to stand up. I'm going to push back from my desk. Get your wiggles out. See if you can if you need to do this in your chair, feel free to do this in your chair. But if you have the ability to stand up with us, that might be helpful. And we're just going to move through a 5 yoga pose sequence to help kind of re-energize, reorient, and connect our brain and body. So the first one is the chair pose, and I'm going to invite you to sit as if you're sitting in your chair, but not really. So you get that tension in your legs. And then move your arms straight in front of you like this. Hold that for just a second. You might feel that. And now I want you to stand up, pulling your right foot behind you. So you still have both of your arms reaching up high and your right foot is behind you. And now we're going to go by putting your front arm forward where your knee is facing and your back arm towards that back leg. And just kind of lean into that front leg. See how my arm is coming kind of closer to you? You're going to lean forward a little bit. Oh, feel that stretch in your hip flexor? Feels good. And now we're going to reverse warrior and bring that hand up to the sky. Your back arm falls down to your leg. Oh, and get that stretch in your side body. Did anybody else feel a snap, crackle, pop? Oh, try to hold it. Oh, okay, come back forward. Get both hands up in the center. Maybe you pull your hands together and bring them down, centering your thoughts, your words, and your spirit for this next session of learning and engagement. So as I pull myself back in, if anyone wants to notice how they're feeling after that quick little experience, I'd invite you to put that in the chat for us so that we can see. Really helps us to know if that resonated with you or if that helped you, just to take a quick minute, do a mindfulness moment and a movement break. Oh, good, Constance. You're a little more relaxed, Maria. Thank you. Oh, good. I kind of need to shake it out a little bit more, Christine. I was like chair and intense for Christian section. It was good. Oh, okay.
Refreshness, Stacy says. Lots of popping for me.
Oh, good. So in this section, the intersection of environments and interactions and the role that they play in influencing the development of self-regulation skills. That's what this session is all about. These are our learning outcomes. We really want to accomplish these 3 things. We're going to build on this morning sessions and take it into some new learnings as well. We want to understand the components of self-regulation and why it's critical to social emotional development in early childhood. We're going to learn how to create an intentional space in your environment, your classroom, your program setting, and how to use breathing techniques, movement, and sensory tools to support self-regulation in young children. And finally, all of us together, hopefully, we're going to reflect on our own learning environment. So you and your context and your personal situation, reflect on your learning environment and your own interactions with children, and then create a plan to implement these new practices to support yourself and the children in your care. And thank you so much for continuing to put your responses into the movement break. My body ached too. Whoever said that. And it was incredible just changing our state was able to bring about a change from those aches and pains. Thank you for acknowledging that. We have created some tools to guide your learning through the rest of this experience. Those tools are in the resource section. Wonderful. Thank you for adding those again. We have them available in English and Spanish as well. Don't feel like you need, if you're rushing to find a way to print, don't worry about it. It can be something that when you revisit this experience, because we will be providing the slides to you, you can also record your thoughts later as you visit the presentation. So if you had them in advance or if you're ready to look at them now, that's great. You don't need to have them though. And so this whole session centers around self-regulation. So it's probably important then that we get clear on exactly what is and what isn't self-regulation. So if we look at this umbrella over here, self-regulation is the umbrella term, and it broadly refers to the ability to regulate behavior, cognition, and emotion in order to pursue goal-directed behaviors. What does that mean, goal-directed behaviors? It means I want to be able to participate in my team meeting. So I need to self-regulate to put away the distractions and the frustrations of my morning so I can do that. That's from the adult context. From the child's context, they want to participate in play. They want to participate in an activity. And so they have to be able to regulate behavior, cognition, and emotion in order to pursue those goal-directed behaviors, in order to be able to do something. So self-regulation skills include all of these other skills down here. It's not just any one of those, but all of them. So they include higher order cognitive functions, problem solving, planning, and impulse control. The ability to regulate thoughts, feelings, and actions helps children successfully negotiate many of the challenges they face, promoting resilience in the face of adversity. And we heard that from Christian. So the multiple layers of factors contribute to self-regulation. And we can see that while biology is at the core, and it does set the stage for self-regulation and readiness, it's the skills and motivation for self-regulation that develop through the interactions with caregivers and the broader environment over an extended period of time from birth through young adulthood and beyond that is most critical. So to use a similar graphic, but a different starting point here, we can see that it starts with you. So across early childhood, brain-based capacity for self-regulation increases rapidly. This is the time where you have tremendous influence. So by starting with warm relationships, structured within a calm environment, responding with warmth in times of stress, working with families, and cultivating a sense of community, you have tremendous power in supporting children's development of self-regulation skills. So think about self-regulation like any other content area that needs skill development. So just like with literacy or math, the capacity for development will not be fully realized without support for the environment. Think about it. For literacy, young children need exposure to print materials in the environment, combined with active instruction and support, and lots of practice. Well, it's the same thing for self-regulation. Children need structured environments, warm, responsive relationships, and direct instruction and coaching in a progression of self-regulation skills. So today we're going to learn a recipe for how to do just that. And Christine is going to walk us through a visual of what that recipe is.
Earlier this morning, Christian talked about children's development of regulation skills, and Erin shared some more foundational information, orienting relationships and environment. And our recipe card offers a framework for how this all fits together and how we're going to talk about it today. So how our space and materials, our environments, can set the stage for nurturing these supportive interactions and have an ongoing cycle of learning and practicing these strategies. So step one, these whys. We need to understand the whys, which we're starting to dig into. We want to understand co-regulation, self-regulation, how we get there, and then what is this concept of a place-based approach. Step two, we're going to gather all our ingredients and take a closer look at them all. They're chosen so intentionally. We want to kind of dig into why we chose these components to add to our recipe. So our environment, of course, but also the importance of movement, developing an expansive emotional vocabulary, learning breathing techniques, and a whole collection of sensory, emotional, and social solutions. Step three, we're going to walk through the phases of learning these skills. And this is lots and lots of practice in lots of different contexts. And finally, step four, we're going to enjoy our feast, which is really just having access to this collection of tools and strategies that we can call on and that we've taught our children so they have access to these strategies. So let's go on to our first why, and exploring the journey to self-regulation. So remember, regulation doesn't always mean calm. It means that our brain and our body are able to work together to be appropriately engaged in this present moment or this present environment. And self-regulation is the ability to get to that place, to find that place, and maintain it independently. That is a big ask. Grown-ups, we still struggle with this, right? Let's dig a little deeper into the journey to get here. So throughout our lifespan, we progress from external regulation to co-regulation and then towards self-regulation. But this blue arrow reminds us that just because we have some self-regulation skills and can get there most of the time, doesn't mean that we stop benefiting from co-regulation at times. We'll talk more about that in a second. Newborns and infants rely on external regulation because a baby can offer cues that they're uncomfortable or they need a clean diaper or they're hungry, but they need their grown-ups, they need their caregiver to provide that necessary physical and emotional support. As our awareness of our needs grow, we also become more able to act on that. So when we know we need something, we can gradually begin to meet that need. And we become less dependent on the external regulation. So a toddler might begin to notice they're thirsty and they can go get their water bottle and take a sip. And that's a step along this journey. A preschooler might notice they're getting hot and take off their sweater. And that's also moving towards self-regulation for some of their physical needs. Co-regulation is a space where we're anchored during most of our early childhood years. So we're learning to notice and being able to respond to some of them ourselves. And we still need our grown-ups for a lot. And it's during this co-regulation that we learn the skills that grow into self-regulation. So most of our conversations today around co-regulation are going to be beyond these physical needs, but more about when adults are providing a calm, empathetic, responsive, supportive relationship to children as they're managing their big emotions. We could not have been any more well set up than we were by Christian and his examples and such really rich videos to see that in action. So one of the phrases I use a lot about co-regulation is being with, and it's really just being present and able to maintain our own regulation so we don't escalate with the children. Excuse me. We reference that. I feel like folks use terms like neutral when they were talking about how Christian was responding in moments when kids were escalating. That's being able to co-regulate and being with. And it makes children feel safe. They trust that their grown-ups can handle their whole selves and their whole range of emotions. And they need many instances of this safe, secure regulation in lots of contexts, lots of situations, and they'll build a well of experiences that they can draw upon as they build their own self-regulation muscles. So this progression isn't static, and adults need to level up and then suddenly don't need any more co-regulation. The other day, I found myself totally overwhelmed, and I called my friend to be talked off the ledge, and just having that conversation helped me kind of take some deep breaths and have the physiological response that I needed, that I could begin to think about solutions. So we all need that in lots of different ways, and children need it for sure. As educators, our self-awareness around our own emotional state and the tools that help that are going to be super important so that we can provide that for children. Thanks, Erin. Okay. I'm sorry, my notes are not matching, but here we are. So, noticing our own needs, and when we're spending our days being attuned to others, it can be really hard to tune into ourselves. So most of us have some kind of a trigger. It might be sensory, it might be emotional, it might be physical, but knowledge is power. So I know if I'm overheated, I might get a little cranky. I see Erin using one of her techniques. If I'm overheated and cranky, I'm probably going to be less patient. So something as simple as keeping my cold water bottle next to me can be helpful to help me be present and attuned and responsive in the way I want to be. This can be a really powerful thing to model for children. And when we normalize this, that we all have a range of sensory preferences, and we let children see us taking steps to meet our own needs, that helps make space for them to have needs and preferences and have agency around being able to use the strategies they need to be successful. So the first Y is understanding co and self-regulation. The second Y in our recipe is understanding how we want to use a space or a place to support this practice. Form and function are one. This quote from architect Frank Lloyd Wright is simple but powerful. In design and architecture, we talk a lot about form, that's like a design or a shape or a structure, and function, which is how it behaves or encourages people to behave. This relationship is really significant in early childhood settings as well. Our experiences are shaped by our environments and the people we share it with. So I'm sure you can think about a classroom setup that influences children's behavior. For me, the ones that come to mind are ones that don't work so well. And a lot of times I don't know it till I try it out and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a bad idea. So a block area that's too small and there's a lot of bickering, or I know we've all been there with a furniture arrangement with our runway that intentionally becomes a racetrack. So when we embrace the power of our environment to influence behavior and relationships and the way we engage with it, we can use that same acknowledgement and intention to create choices that evoke what we want to see more of. So when we create spaces in our classroom to encourage specific engagement, it might be art centers that encourage creativity, or like that really cozy spot where we want to curl up with a book and some storytelling props. These are all examples of a place-based approach. In our session, we're focusing on how to create this space that anchors materials, so the stuff, and supports interactions, so the relationships, the adult-child conversations and practice that's needed to help young children learn all these skills for self-regulation. I like to think about it as a hub or a home base. And it goes back to that predictable component that we spoke about earlier, when we know that there is going to be materials here that we need and are going to be helpful. We know that our grown-up is going to be able to be here and be with us. It creates a sense of safety, and we can take risks and be able to learn and engage. So today we're going to call this a cozy corner. Some folks call it a safe space, a calm down area. I've heard a Zen den. Let's dig into the components. So what is a cozy corner? It's important that this space is easily accessible, that children can access it at any time. We've talked a lot about co-regulation, and here's the thing. It's really hard to co-regulate if your cozy corner doesn't have room for a grown-up. So privacy cubes and small tents and the canopies, they can be such a great option and can be really comforting for some children. But if that's the only space you have to support regulation, there's just often not enough room for a grown-up to be close by. So we're going to have a much more extensive conversation about all the different sensory aspects of regulation, but for now, I'll just share that it's important to have that home base for a collection of sensory tools. So these materials that are going to support regulation, usually through either enhancing or reducing sensory input. We needed to be a home base for our visual guides. So we talked about how visuals can be so important when we're struggling with regulation, reducing words and language and tone, and just having a visual cue is super powerful. So we want to have materials that children can access that help them remind them of their options for breathing techniques, for identifying feelings, for problem-solving options, for emotional, sensory, and social solutions, and for movement suggestions. So this might be the trickiest part, but more than a visual to support movement, we actually need space to do it. And a space where children are welcomed and encouraged to practice these big body movement strategies, like we just did, like when we had our warm-up, stretching. So, do you have a cozy corner in your classroom? This is one of our first opportunities for our Reflect, Share, and Plan. You can reference your learning and reflection guide if you have that on hand. And we'd love for you to drop your comments into the chat as we come to these Reflect, Share, and Plan paces. I'm already learning so much from folks and their sharing, and we have folks translating as well. So please keep that up. It's wonderful. So our first prompt's inviting you to consider your own setting. Do you have a cozy corner? If you do, what's working well? What's tricky? What's challenging? And if not, what's your biggest challenge to creating this kind of space? What's on your ingredient list? What are the things you have in your cozy corner? And is there anything you'd like to add or enhance in your current space? I'm just going to take a minute. Oh, I see my room's small. That can be tricky. Absolutely. Stacy says that the box idea is cool and kids will go there just because. And absolutely, we want our cozy corner to be a place that children can use when they're dysregulated, but also to get familiar with because they are comfortable there, because they appreciate the materials there.
Yeah, so let's refocus this question again. Think about if you are in a classroom setting and it's your specific classroom, or if it's a program, or if you support multiple, if you could just call to mind one environment, one learning environment, and then reflect, do you have a place for regulation? And then within that space, we'd love to know what elements do you have? Is there ample room? Do you have sensory tools there? Do you have visual guides? And do you have a nearby place for movement? And it helps us just to figure out where you are in your own adoption of this type of a strategy. And if you use curricular tools. So again, if you use conscious discipline, it might be called a safe place in your room. If you use Owl's Pals, it might be called a calm down area. Pyramid model is often some version of those. If you're in Montessori, it could be a peace table or a peace area. But regardless of what you call it, understanding what you have in it and what you use it for is going to be really helpful then as we talk about each of these components and the other ingredients for this space.
So I see a corner of calm and breathing. I see conscious discipline tools, lots of books and dolls. Those are so helpful.
Family album. Tamara, high five. We're going to talk about that one. Keep going. Call them out.
Kitchens and books. So comfort really is a real piece to regulation. When we're comfortable, we're better able to regulate. Books about feelings. Yes, that's that visual piece.
Feelings posters.
Yes, I see the large wooden box. Sometimes we call that a privacy cube or a cozy cube. Pillows and soft cushions in the library.
Ooh, feelings dolls.
Mm.
Oh, a comfort dog. I love that.
Oh, yes. I am seeing a comment about having a material that helps with regulation, but many children want to use it at the same time. And so that can be tricky. So yes, we have to be aware of if sometimes we might need more than one thing, or then we might need an additional tool to help with the turn taking or additional strategies.
A special corner where I keep an emotions clock, textured books, relaxation cards, materials that help the children relax.
Mm.
Oh, and all through coalition training. So ELCMDM, our host, shout out to you for supporting your providers so well.
Oh, this is so great. Sensory balls, fidget toys, a Montessori space that's used with one children at a time. And Patricia's curious if it might be helpful to expand. So yeah, there's a lot of space for kind of bringing curiosity to your current practices and what could be a way to rethink how you're doing it. And we can always try things. We can try it and be like, that doesn't work out, or I tried it and it was wonderful. But we're not committing to it for the year, just when we give it a try. Oh, this is wonderful. Keep it coming. We're going to move on because we really want to have a chance to dig into the comments. But please keep your comments coming, and we'll have a lot more opportunities for sharing out.
So I didn't notice yet very many comments about either a space for big body movements or visual tools to support big body movements. So this is really a critical piece to supporting the development of self-regulation in young children. And specific to this place-based approach is that it's near the cozy corner. Because, and let's talk about why, we need to provide a defined space. So this space doesn't need to be as big as your whole group meeting rug. It's not a space for a dance party. It's a space for one child to move their body. So it could be only as big as a hula hoop. That child's body can fit in that hula hoop. That is the designated space that you can provide for these big body movements. But you want it to be adjacent, not right up on top of, but near the cozy corner. And this is why. It could be a precursor to visiting the cozy corner or an anytime brain break or movement zone during the day. So what do we mean when it's a precursor? If a child is so dysregulated that they are not yet able to visit the cozy corner in a way that supports them and is actually good, raise your hand or put a thumbs up if you've ever had a child that you helped go to Cozy Corner, but all they did there was kick the materials, trash the stuff, throw the stuff that was in your Cozy Corner ended up getting demolished because the child really wasn't yet ready to visit that space. Yeah, that has happened. So a great transition of if when we see this physical agitation in the children and we are seeing that they are not yet ready to sit down and get comfy and breathe and talk about their feelings, they're not there yet. They're moving from lower brain state. We need to get them first into emotional. This big body movement zone with the visuals can help them do that. So if in this zone, we provide visual tools that show children how to do a range of big body movements, this is clutch. So what does big body movements mean? It means it should have a large range of motion. So large range of motion means, see how like my arm's really big, not just like a this, right? Like I can move my body a little bit, small range of motion, but like a big range of motion. And then also requires exertion. Think about right now, take your hands and clench them really, really, really hard so that your whole body gets tense. That's exertion versus I can flop and move. This is movement, right? But did it require a lot of exertion? So those are two key things in these big body movements that can support this transition from a lower state into at least an emotional state. We're not getting up to fully regulated, but at least an emotional state so that we can address what might be happening in the moment. And then before we get into each of them, it's critical to offer modifications. So we need to understand that for a large range of motion and intense exertion, that needs to be modified based on the physical abilities of both the educator and the child. So while there are a range of options that we've provided, they need to be modified to speak to the children's specific needs. And Christine and Julius, you guys are doing an amazing job of monitoring the chat. If there's ever something that you want to pull out and interrupt me because we should address it right in that moment, please feel free to do that.
So Erin, I just want to acknowledge, I want to make sure, I'm not sure if I'll get the name right, but Tabata had a question about offering a material for a child that needs to use big movements. And I just want to say, yes, right on. We are going to really get into that. So once we kind of move into that, if we don't answer your question, please circle back.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about, we have a Becker's Cozy Corner solution, but there are lots of options. There is the Conscious Discipline Active Calming Station. There are visual supports from Head Start, from Pyramid Model. Lots of different providers have tools. We selected these 8 movements that we can quickly go over for a very specific purpose. The squat and squeeze, think of it like the Hulk when he says Hulk smash, and he like squats down and he pulls his arms down. It's okay to look foolish, clearly, like be an adult, be foolish and silly. It's wonderful. So squat and squeeze. We also have a balance board that gives feedback underneath. So it's bounce and balance for that vestibular feedback. Push the wall for if there's a safe wall in the room, very important note, then it's push as hard as you can against that wall. Jumping jacks, just as they sound. Stomp. So but like a really big stomp, not just like a quiet little march, but like I'm a dinosaur. I'm making things in the ground. I'm stomping so hard. And then a bear crawl is tremendous for proprioceptive input. You feel all of that in your joints and you have core stability, engagement in a bear crawl. Cobra pose, the same way. And by the way, guys, I'm doing these right here. I should have probably said that. Squat and squeeze, balance on the board, push the wall, jumping jacks, stomp the ground, bear crawl, cobra pose, which is laying on your belly, and then just lifting up the trunk and you feel a stretch in your core muscles. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And then finally, frog jumps. And frog jumps like hit a trifecta of a lot of different things, but you have to get low. It's a big range of motion. It has a great high energy exertion as you jump back up, raise your hands up high, and go back down. Think about like for adults doing burpees. If you take an extra exercise class and do burpees, it's hard. So why are we focusing on this? Erin, is this PE class? Like what role does all of these exercises have to do? Like what role does it play in self-regulation? Well, at the core, children at this young age of early childhood development, proprioceptive and vestibular systems, those sensory systems, are actually the foundational thing that then supports all other learning, self-regulation and other learning. These two systems it's where it's at for young kids. This is the feedback that they need, the input that they need. They need support in these two sensory systems, and then they can integrate and learn and grow in other things. So the swing, we're going to think about as vestibular. Vestibular is sometimes called the balance sense. And you might see children meeting their vestibular system's need when they hang over their chair like this in library. You know, the kids that go over to library, right? And they take their body and their feet go up and then their head go down and they kind of turn upside down. Or the kids who are on morning meeting rug and spin around and twist their body into different spaces. Vestibular is in the inner ear where the receptors are, but it has to do with space and balance. So we're going to cover a couple of movements or child behaviors that maybe you'll see in your classroom and what sensory system need that might be communicating. So maybe raise your hand, let us know in the chat. Do you have any children who run in the hallway, run in the classroom, run in an indoor space where it is not allowed? Yeah, I got some hands. Okay, so a child who is running, me, yep, a child who is running, it may be circumstantial to whatever scenario is happening, but often children are trying to meet these core sensory needs of proprioceptive and vestibular input. So if we intentionally provide opportunities for children to stomp, to do jumping jacks, and we incorporate it into their regular flow, and or we offer it as a replacement behavior. So if we learn from Christian that you can set a limit on safety behaviors, so we were running, and I can set a limit, I could also offer a replacement behavior. So a replacement behavior to running, what I can do is I can stomp. What I can do is do some jumping jacks. Right? So we're going to look at another couple examples of a behavior you might see. What input is that looking for? And then also, could we offer it as a replacement behavior? Anybody have kids who climb on furniture? Climb on other children? Climb on things that they are not supposed to climb on? Again, it's not always about trying to get to the thing on the shelf that's up there. It is often an accessibility. I should mention this. In your environmental rating scales, accessible materials is key. If you're keeping highly desired materials up high, children are probably going to try and climb. Outside of that, children are often communicating a need for that body sensory input. So you could do balance on the board, a bounce and balance, or a bear crawl. And that bear crawl, this is a magical movement. So if you take something away today, a magical movement is a bear crawl. It will really engage a child's sensory systems and hit a reset for them. Uh-oh, how about pushing? Anybody have kids who push? And they might like push a lot of things. They kind of push against the wall when they're in line trying to go outside. They kind of push against furniture in the room. They're just the ones who, I don't know, they want that like, what happens when I push? Will it push back? Will it fall over? They have this need. So sometimes it's social, sometimes it's that sensory. So a replacement behavior could be to push the wall, or it could be to do the cobra pose. So observing the children who have these frequent behaviors and then anticipating the next day, maybe do some cobra poses as a part of that child's entry and greeting routine. Offer them multiple times to go over and visit the big body movement area. These are ways that we can get ahead of needing to offer it as a replacement behavior, and instead we're going to prevent it. So this brings us to our next reflect, share, and plan. We'd like you to bring to mind a moment where a child's physical behavior felt disruptive. Never happens, right? I was with you in Christian session. It happens, right? So is there a big body movement that you sense might be supportive for this child? So bring to mind a specific child, a moment in your day where this child's physical behavior feels disruptive. Then that part 2, is there a big body movement that might be supportive for this child? So if you have some ideas in your chat and you're thinking about, during mealtime, I have one child who constantly pushes their chair back away from the table. I mean, like 8 million times in a row. Push in, push out, push in, push out, push in, push out. Is there a time in morning meeting where a child is basically breakdancing on the carpet, rolling around on their belly, on their back, legs are open, legs are closed?
Yes, your climbing examples, running examples, We're hearing lots of this.
Yeah. So then, and I appreciate the fact that many of you are accessing the materials to guide your learning. And so it's okay if you're not right in this moment because you're looking at the material and come back. We realize that. So we will have time to be able to capture your reflections and your thoughts for your setting as we move along. But specific to this, do you need to prepare any materials or adjust your environment to support the use of these big body movements? Ooh, dance freely or imitate animals. I love that strategy. That's so great. In a transition, can you line up at the door like and then can we line up like a bear? Can we line up like and then a different animal?
A dinosaur stomp. That's great, deep proprioceptive input.
Awesome. Stretching exercises, jumps, adding it to music. Love these. Okay. So I don't know about you, Christine, but big body movements often require me to then take a moment and breathe.
Yeah, I love the way that we've sequenced this because a lot of times I feel like we go to the breathing technique, but I can't slow down enough to breathe if I haven't moved first. So, so great. So we've done some big movement, and maybe now we have enough access to regulation that we can begin to do some of these breathing exercises. So, breath is a bridge which connects life to consciousness, with which unites your body to your thoughts. This quote, Thich Nhat Hanh, just brings to light the power of our breath and our body. And that is what there's like so much emerging science about this right now, that when we focus on taking deep, steady breaths, particularly in through our nose and out through our mouth, it actually changes our physiological response. So the big words is that it helps us access our parasympathetic nervous system. That's the part of our brain that controls all the involuntary things our body does. So our heart rate, our blood pressure, stress hormones like adrenaline, the things that make us feel like we need to run away or freeze. So breathing in this way can kind of short circuit this feeling of panic, and it tells our brains, you are safe. And that's really the first thing that needs to happen. We can't learn if we're not safe. So this breath is such a powerful exercise. So that said, taking a deep breath is not a universal answer. It's not going to de-escalate every tricky moment, but it might help you just enough so that you can regulate just a little bit, that you can then use your brain, your thinking brain, to access a solution. You might be calmed down enough that you can be like, okay, yeah, it's actually maybe a timer could help. So it can help a child access kind of the next step in their problem solving plan. Breathing techniques are so great for kids and educators because we can use them anywhere. We often teach them with a visual or maybe a special material, but once we've learned them, we can use them anywhere we go, and they're quick. So they're perfect to practice during transitions. We're going to talk about, for all of these strategies, that we need to practice them every day during times that we're not dysregulated so that we can access them during times that we are dysregulated. So these are great to incorporate into routines during transitions or just spontaneously. And it's so empowering. Kids feel so confident when they can use these skills, when they have a couple different breathing exercises. They love teaching their families about these. This is a really great homeschool connection, super powerful. So in our space, going back to our place-based approach, we can have these visuals. And again, they're such a wonderful cue when we're dysregulated. We don't have to use words. It kind of goes around having to figure out what to do next. We see a picture and we're like, oh, right, that's what we can do. And once we start taking the breaths, we're able to move into the critical thinking. I heard someone did conscious discipline, and I feel like maybe someone even said drain, and that reminded me of, yeah, a moment when I was teaching. It was during COVID. I dropped a big honking bottle of hand sanitizer on my toe, and we were masked, and so you couldn't see my whole face, but this kiddo saw just my eyes, and I was like this. And she was like, "Oh, Christine, are you doing drain?" Like, really, I'm just trying not to say bad words, but yeah, I'm doing drain. And before I knew it, I had this like gaggle of pre-K kids helping me work through the drain exercise. It was just so lovely. And yeah, I wish I had thought to do drain in that moment, but I was grateful for her help. So let's practice a couple together. Let's practice. I call it 5-finger breathing. You might call it starfish or roller coaster breathing, hand breathing. This is a great one because our hands are with us. So we start at the base of our thumb, and as we move our finger up towards the tip of our thumb, we'll inhale, breathe in, and pause, and then exhale. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And you would continue for all of your fingers, breathing in as you track up and breathing out as you track down. And as we're practicing, I'm noticing the language I'm using: inhale, exhale. And for very young children, a lot of kiddos can't do that on command. Like they're like, oh, wait, what does that mean? Or if they're dysregulated, asking them to access the like motor plan with their bodies for what breathing in and breathing out is not always the easiest thing. So prompts like you can see in the poster in the bottom right and then on the top right, smelling a flower. A lot of children having that language reminds them, oh, right. So, and then blowing out a candle or blowing bubbles or blowing a pinwheel can help for prompting that exhale.
I'm always reminded, Christine, do you like think of a child, a toddler that you have tried to help learn how to blow their nose, and without fail, almost every single time they suck it in instead of out. You're like, no, blow your nose. And then
yeah.
So this isn't such a natural thing for children. Understanding the out is or through your nose, and the in is a very much a learned skill.
Absolutely. Have you guys seen a video? I feel like it circulated on social media of someone offering a child a dandelion to blow, and instead they go and they look like they're gonna blow it, and then they go just chomp it. It's like, oh, okay. So we did balloon breathing with Christian in the beginning. That's another one that uses that same extension movement. So when we combine movement and breath, oh, that's getting so good. So let's watch this next example. It's another great combination of movement.
Extend. Sorry.
Okay.
Extend, cross, squeeze. Extend your arms out in front of you. Cross your arms, clasping your hands. Tuck them under and give yourself a squeeze, breathing deeply as you go.
Yeah, so this is movement, extension, and then that deep pressure. It's like a trifecta of goodness, regulation goodness. I love it. Okay, so a couple great things.
Extend, cross, squeeze. Extend your arms out in front of you. Cross your arms, clasping your hands. Tuck them under and give yourself a squeeze, breathing deeply as you go.
That was worth watching twice. A couple great things. It's okay, you can leave it there, but I'll highlight that a couple things were happening in that video. So you probably noticed that the adult was on the child's level. We weren't trying to do this while an adult was standing and a child's standing or sitting. So being right there at the child's level, great class connection, proximity, eye level. And they have a visual tool that they're referencing to guide the steps. Especially something like this that has a sequence, you might need a prompt or a help. And then the adult was practicing it with the child. So it helps model, it helps the child learn. Some children can learn it from a visual, but learn it better from an adult. But it's also a really lovely co-regulation moment. It's a great time of being together.
And
So,
without my back and forth there, Christine, it's that 1-2 combination of visual, and then I have muscle memory of learning how to do what's on that visual with my trusted caregiver. So that then when I revisit that visual all on my own, I have this muscle memory to go back to of, oh, Miss Christine was right in front of me, and this is how we do that thing. And so it's this constant reinforcement of the visual and then the physical practice in cooperation with the adult. And that's what cements it in the child's brain.
absolutely. Thanks. That's like worth repeating because it's going to be true for all of these. Um, All right, so for this reflect, share, and plan, we're asking you to brainstorm, kind of think about your schedule, the flow of your day, and is there a time that you could incorporate breathing practices? And I haven't been super tuned into the chat, but I've seen lots of things popping up about, oh yeah, we do that one, or ours is kind of like that. So I'm thinking this might already be happening. So please also feel free to share if you've been successful incorporating this into your day. And also, is this something that you could add purposefully with your whole group or choose to tune in one-on-one with a child to practice these, not because they're in a moment of dysregulation. So not when they're upset, not when they're overwhelmed, to pull a kid or a few kids aside and be like, hey, do you guys want to try a new breathing exercise? I just learned this. Do you guys want to learn it with me? That can be a really wonderful way to embed practice. All right. So,
Purple breathing practices every day. Love that consistency. So just like you might have a morning greeting song, I heard lots of, we do songs and movement every day in our group meeting time. And we also do group breathing. Love that. If you have something, is there a time? So it might not be something that you currently do, but maybe you have an idea. What could we do? Could you add breathing to a time when your whole group transitions somewhere? Might a breathing exercise be helpful then? Or with one child, think about when you have personal care routines or a one-on-one moment at greeting or goodbye. How might you integrate a breathing practice in a time of calm?
this reminds me, relaxation practices working really well when they come back from the park and it helps them move to the next transition. And Erin, I think I shared a story with you about 1 year we had our schedule. I didn't have a lot of choice around it, but we came in from our outside time right to our rest time. And the kids were so often like still just flushed and pink and their hearts were racing and they were breathing hard. And I'm like, this is bonkers. We cannot lay down and we'll all be frustrated. So we started taking a moment before we even went into the classroom, and we had a really great front porch, but we would sit on the front porch if it was, even if it was cold, we would sit on the front porch and take our breathing moments and then be able to enter our classroom and have our rest time and feel a little more prepared.
And I love Graciella's comment that the children love the playful element of the balloon exercise in the way that she does it. That when you blow, 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 and can you make it pop? And the popping sound.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, and equally, or if it has the fun, you know,
Yeah.
when you're like releasing the air from a balloon. There's so many different ways we can bring an element of playfulness to our breathing exercises too.
Yes. I see so many comments about transition. Someone else mentions bringing it into your routine before nap.
Mm,
Yes. Wonderful.
such a great reset.
Great transition from one activity to another. Yes.
We agree. So hopefully you are getting some ideas from peers or from the presentation that you can jot down and maybe try as soon as Monday. closely connected to our breath is how we're feeling. What might have precipitated needing to take that breath, or really just being able to put a name to how we're feeling. And identifying emotions is absolutely the first step to managing them. And this quote from Brene Brown, language shows us that naming an experience gives us the power of understanding and meaning is so critical. And we can do this in our place-based setting in our cozy corner by using tools like feelings charts, emotions books, and puppets. And then we can model that language with children throughout the day. So what does this look like, these supports in developing an emotional vocabulary? There are so many different types of emotion charts out there. They're used in a lot of different ways, but let's talk about the must-haves for these type of tools. They need to be clear visuals. And if you have a mirror, that's the physical tool, that can really level up. So the educator can describe what they're feeling on a child's face, but for a child to then go look in the mirror and see what that looks like on their own face. So I said, your face looks like a frown. And one kid's looks like a frown and the other looks differently, right? So what does a frown look like on my face versus your face? So being able to have a mirror with those visual tools. And if your visual tool has both a photograph and like a drawing, the pictorial representation, it can meet both the needs of children who see things differently. Some children struggle to see themselves in another child who looks very different. So I can't see my expression in that child's face because that's a boy and I'm a girl, or they look so different that I can't recognize myself in that. So sometimes for those children, simply having the drawing is helpful because then it's more universal. Start with the basics and then add the terms. Add additional terms based on what's important to the children. So this is where the attunement of you as the educator is critical because you get to observe what the children are doing throughout the day and then latch on to that opportunity to intentionally introduce that feeling or that emotion. And then you can find a time of day to make instruction around that. So that could be things like disappointed. It has been raining for 3 weeks straight, and you are noticing that so many children are disappointed they don't get to go outside during recess time. So we could use disappointed over and over, like their faces like this. Oh, we don't get to go outside, or maybe they're whining. You look really disappointed that we can't go outside today. And so then that might be the impetus for introducing that word. But we're watching what's happening and we're taking advantage of the emergent experiences of the children. Describe that body language and then practice daily. I don't know if you've seen a common thing here, but do we need to practice daily all of these things, Christine? Maybe. Yes. No.
I think we do. I think we do, both intentionally and spontaneously.
Yeah. So this video really isn't much of a video, but as a picture, what we want to show is that many of you might have feelings charts that children check in the morning. How you feeling today? And then maybe they have a clip chart. Maybe they put their little face or their name next to the feeling of how they're feeling today. That's a great practice to bring it into your everyday routine. We want to highlight here that it's not about correcting what we think might be an incorrect interpretation. What do I mean by that? Sometimes when we have these charts, a child comes in and every single day, this is how they're affect. They come into school. Miss Murray, give Murray a hug, they go do their things. Okay, why don't you go do your feelings check-in? And then they take their little marker and they go put it under angry. And you're like, like you just came in and you had a smile on your face and you hugged me and then you chose angry. Try not to get hung up on, you're not angry, you look happy. The goal of simply providing a space and time for children to check in and look at the picture is to see their development over time. And then we can actually just describe what we see. So, oh, I noticed you chose angry. And then maybe describe the affect of the person on the angry. That person looks like this. I noticed when you walked in, you had a smile on your face. That's it. Leave it there. Don't say it looks like you're happy instead of angry. Don't try to correct them. Just really focusing on describing the affect and then moving on. There are lots of reasons why a child could mislabel, and really just building the muscle of having it available is critical. So this is the piece that I'm excited to bring back some cast of characters that you saw earlier. And we'll see a couple other instances of the child having an emotion in their play, and then the educator, which happened to be me in these examples, describing their feeling or emotion. So I'm going to let them speak for themselves, and then I'll ask Christian for maybe a little bit of evaluation.
It's the end, Isabella. You're telling me to look at Grover. What does he look like?
Funny.
He looks funny.
Look, he has his head.
He's rubbing his head.
No, he's his head.
He's touching his head.
He's doing that.
Because he said the words right here, Isabella, say, "Oh, I am so embarrassed."
What?
Do you know why he's embarrassed?
Why?
Because the whole time he was afraid of a monster
What?
at the end of the book. See his face? How does his face look?
Wait.
Afraid. He looked scared. He thought there was a monster at the end of the book. But who was at the end of the book? Who was it?
Move.
It was just Grover. There was no scary monster at the end. It was just Grover. So he said, "I'm so embarrassed. It was just me. There was no scary monster, just Grover."
So what was interesting about that was a couple of things. First of all, Isabella chose that book, and she was going through the book all on her own. So it was her choice that we were going through it. Then she genuinely didn't know, what does that mean if somebody is going like this? Maybe we know, oh, that's a sign of embarrassment. But she was like, that just looks weird. Why does Grover look like this? She hadn't run into that expression before. So she's genuinely asking, why does Grover, like, what is that? That's weird. So then going through that process of saying, oh, he's embarrassed. And then how is embarrassment different from scared? Because she did know scared. Remember when we saw her look at the book, she looked at it. She said, oh, he's afraid here, but she didn't know the other one. So the opportunity to teach feelings vocabulary when it's the child's choice of play, that's a mic drop moment right there. Woo! Right? So powerful. So this one is an example of frustration.
Oh, tell me about yours, Jose.
Wait.
Keep trying.
Oh, man.
Oh, man, you're frustrated. The beads rolled away from the mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet if you tried again, you could try to put those beads back.
So Christian, can you name a couple of those things in there and how it connects to the play skills in your section? And you're on mute, sorry. You've been on mute the whole time, thank goodness.
Sorry. First, I want to steal that video from my own workshops. It's great. Yeah, I mean, you do exactly what I do as a play therapist. It's what I would do in a classroom is acknowledge his effort. You said he's trying. And then you were attuned to how he was feeling, his tone of voice, his expression. And even while half of his face is covered, what we want is to read the child's facial expression as well and acknowledge that what you're feeling is frustrated. And then you offered that encouragement that if he kept trying, you communicated confidence in his ability to be successful. And I think that is an important piece to that interaction as well, is because a lot of children don't hear that message from adults so much, and you're communicating, I believe in you, you can do this if you try. And I think that's wonderful.
And then we'll see about this next one for excited. I'm curious for audience feedback for this one.
And boom. Yeah.
And the E, you are so excited, Jaden, that you can trace your name. That's the I. You are so excited, Jaden. Go move on to your E. Across and around.
Boom. Yeah.
All right, Jaden, try that N, the last one. down, frog jump up, around.
So I'm going to ask if anyone noticed Jaden isn't really ready yet developmentally for tracing the letters of his name. If you notice how he's holding that marker, if you notice where he starts writing, just the tentativeness, the hesitancy, he's not ready for this. But there was another child doing it. Jaden wanted to do it. And so we take advantage of that motivation. Jaden wanted to do this activity. And I started by trying to, okay, let's really make this a letter formation activity. But then I was quickly in another path once I saw how excited he was. I no longer cared. It's not care in this moment. I was not focused on the fact of proper letter formation. I only wanted him to build on his excitement because I could see that as he completed one letter, he got so excited. And then he did the next letter. So in this instance, it was really just about naming and building on his excitement and not focusing on the academic objective of writing your name. Anything else, Christine, that I missed there?
No, it's so great and powerful. We've had comments about how powerful mirrors can be. Lots of different comments about visuals with books and cards, and having children have lots of different ways to see expression of what we think of as a common expression, seeing it expressed in multiple contexts and settings.
So this is a connection to class that I want to make before we do our reflect, share, and plan, is that it doesn't always need to be about your cognitive and academic skill development, but there is great value in recognizing the moment for emotional skill development. So if the opportunity at hand is, and I think Fressy mentioned this, someone in the chat, use that moment for that emotional development piece. Don't worry about the other thing that may be connected to your lesson plan. Another moment has presented itself. Okay, so now for your reflection, what are you already doing to help children identify and name their feelings? What's working well? So think about your own classroom. Do you have a time of day where you name your feelings, like a feelings check-in? Do you do it individually? We'd love to know, what are you doing and what's working well for you? Love that. Thank you. So what are you doing already to help children identify and name their feelings, and what is working well?
So Carla shares that every week she sends home an emotion book with the story of the week, and that helps families and the homeschool connection. So the parents are able to be hearing what the children are learning about in school, and that parents are really appreciative of that.
Does anybody think that adults need help in identifying their emotions and feelings, especially with specific language? I bet they do. So that's powerful, not just for parents to know what's happening in the classroom, but to develop their own skills alongside their children. Oh, awesome. Using visuals and pictures to support feelings identification. In circle time, asking how everyone's feeling today, utilizing an emotion cube. Oh, maybe as a game.
I love Lysandra incorporating it to circle time, making it part of a daily practice. That's amazing.
Using cards with emotions on them. Oh, I love that. So using the emotion cards, but turning it into a game to help them look at each other and guess which one it is. That's awesome. Because then you're taking the extension of like, this is what was provided, but then this is my interpretation of that. And then asking friends to identify, this is what it looks like on me. What do you see? Ooh, sending videos through your teacher, child, or family communication app, reading emotional books, role playing with emotions. These are all so good.
Okay, so I see a game with bins and bean bags, and the bins have feelings on them. So we have movement. This isn't a static, still exercise. We're able to move while we're experiencing and exploring different emotions. I'm scrolling to find one, but there was a response about someone that has teachers dramatize emotions and then using their thinking routine. So really, that's a great class connection because that's usually really open-ended questions, problem solving, making predictions and hypotheses, and teachers dramatizing it. It makes it safe, it makes it silly, and it's a really accessible way to explore some of the more complex emotions that children might not have vocabulary around.
Oh, Marie, that's great. I saw two. So singing if you're happy and you know it, and then through the different emotions and holding what that emotion is on the face so that everyone can see their version of that as they do the song. So if you're happy, if you're sad, if you're angry, if you're hungry, maybe not hungry, hangry. There was another one that I wanted to say, which was children's pictures showing different emotions. So for these feelings charts or emotions charts, it sounds like this practice is to take photos of the actual children in that classroom or that program displaying those different emotions and then creating a book or a poster of those specific children. Awesome. So where are we in all of this recipe?
Thanks, Erin. I just thought this was a good point to kind of reorient ourselves in our process. So we're still gathering our ingredients, believe it or not. And this next section in our illustration is just one chunk. We've gathered the solutions together, but we're actually going to tease them out so that we talk about these various categories of solutions that we're going to explore. So this concept of solutions can cover a lot of ground. We broke it down into a few categories that help us be curious and really investigate the root of the need. What is the foundation of what's showing up for a specific child in a specific moment? And a lot of times these solutions speak to a need that's not really obvious. We have our primary category kind of dividing piece is me problems and we problems. So we problems are social challenges, things we might have conflict with a peer, turn taking, being thoughtful about each other's space. Me problems have a couple other categories and address unique individual needs that aren't being met, usually emotional, sensory, or this big word, interoceptive. And this refers to our growing awareness of our physical selves and our kind of most foundational needs: hungry, thirsty, tired, hot, cold, needing to use the toilet. All of these things are interoception. And we'll dig a little more into that in a minute, but we're first going to visit this really powerful visual about the domains of regulation. You've probably seen a pyramid as an illustration before. We like to use these a lot in human development and education. And it's really representing a hierarchy or progression or refinement. Like the closer you get to the top, more specific it is. And the base is the foundation. So it helps us understand how all of these pieces build upon each other. I like to think about our capacity for being successful, for being regulated, for being able to learn, for being able to have positive social interactions, for doing all the things I want to be able to do in the world. I like to think about this capacity as like my tank. And throughout the day, I use gas from my tank. And when the components of this pyramid, when these needs are met, we're more likely to arrive in our world, in our life, with a full tank and have a fuller capacity to do all the things we want to do. So the foundation is all about our physical needs, and interoception describes our awareness. So think way back to our conversation about external regulation and how infants and babies need grown-ups to meet their physical needs. And it might feel silly to think about needing to grow the capacity to be aware of these physical needs, but I know as an adult, there are times I'm so busy, so overwhelmed, I totally forget to eat lunch. And then 2 seconds later, I'm feeling cranky and maybe hangry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need a snack. And then once I eat and I have some protein and my blood sugar is regulated, I'm like, okay, I can do the thing. I can have a fuller tank and more capacity. So still, children are still developing awareness around this, but they also don't have a lot of control in their physical environment. So they're more likely to be dysregulated. After this baseline part, the interoception, come our sensory needs. And this can be a little trickier because in our culture, a lot of diversity and preference around sensory needs is just not as widely appreciated. And it's often misinterpreted as behavior or being picky or maybe even like spoiling or being too indulgent with children. But really, if we can ground these as true sensory needs, when we understand how this affects our bodies and our ability to be successful, it is so powerful. And I'm spending a little bit of time here because it really is so helpful for orienting these next chunks of our section. So again, to reflect on as adults, how much control we have over adjusting our world to suit our sensory needs, a lot of times without even thinking about it. So I was trying to think of an example that's not really supercharged. And I was reminded of how when I grab my favorite pair of sneakers, I will go everywhere looking for my favorite pair of socks to wear with them. Not because I like how they look, but because they're the one pair of socks that don't slide down under my foot and get stuck between my foot and my sneaker. Because I'll tell you what, if I have a lumpy sock under my foot, I can't think about anything else. Like it's toast. Like I shouldn't even try. So I get to pick my clothes. I have had enough life experience to know this about myself, to know I don't want this lumpy sock, to know that the other socks don't work with these sneakers, and I get to pick it. But if you're a kiddo that does not have a lot of choice around your clothes or your tags or something squeezy or itchy or scratchy, you might not have the words to say it, and you can't always fix it on your own. And if you do ask to fix it and your teacher's busy or your parents overwhelmed or they're attending to other things, they might not see it as a real need. So this is often a place that a pretty straightforward solution can lead to big returns, better regulation, and all-around success. Physical needs, sensory needs. If we start there, then we can begin to look at emotional, social, and then like learning and cognitive things. But it's a little crazy to like go hard and hammer on, oh, let's learn how to be a good friend if we don't have the baseline that we need to be present in our bodies, comfortable in our bodies. And as educators, when we have this detective lens, we can help children build that skill so that that foundation is there and we can move into the next steps. Let's look at all the components of our sensory system. So we all talk about our 5 senses, but we have at least 8, and scientists are coming up with more all the time and have big fancy words for them. We've begun to share a little bit about the vestibular system, the proprioceptive system. We're pretty comfortable with these ones around the left side of the wheel: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. We just talked about interoceptive. So our goal is really to normalize the diverse sensory preferences and that it's not a choice and it's not behavior. and position our curiosity around children's experiences as a starting point. In our me-we categories, these are me problems. This is all about me. So beyond scrunchy socks, what else can sensory needs look like? And what is that? How does that connect to regulation? Very often, our sensory thresholds are balanced in whether we have too much or too little input. So you might hear language about a child being sensory seeking, they're looking for more, or sensory avoidant, and they're like trying to reduce their input. And this is going to be super simplified, but a sensory avoidant child might get upset if their hands get sticky. Christian and his glue situation, like not cool for a lot of sensory avoidant children. They might not want to use Play-Doh or slime. They might want the glue stick instead of glue, and they might not even know why. And so if you're having a project and you're like, no, we're not using a glue stick today. Today we were using liquid glue, and they're like, well, I'm out. It might not be a behavior or non-compliance or that they're not interested in the product. It might be just the idea of that liquid glue, too much. Can't do it. Another really simplified example, I bet we can all imagine this sensory seeking child, like that kiddo that like bounces off the wall as they walk down the hallway, and they are just craving this deep input from the world around them. They might love those squeezy hugs. They might love to be wrapped up like a taco, squish themselves into tight places. They're going to be the kids that love all the big body work that Erin talked about. And you might hear people talk about something called heavy work. These are not specifically like movement exercises, but activities that give us that same kind of input. So I just imagine like a kid shoveling in the sandbox or digging or pushing something really heavy. That's just giving our bodies so much input. Believe it or not, that child is craving this input because they're understimulated. And they're trying to meet this need so that they can pay attention. So the child that's wiggling around, rolling in circles on the floor, on the carpet at group time, can't attend to you. They're trying to fill their sensory cup so that they can listen, or cooperate with friends, or problem solve. So the reason I qualified this as pretty complex is because children can be seeking in one area, one of these 8 sensory systems, and avoidant or resistant in other ones. So we can't really kind of paint a kiddo with a wide brush. We really have to stay in that place of curiosity. It's also variable, like our capacity to show up from day to day changes. So things we might be able to tolerate one day might be too much another day. So that empathy, that's where our relationship and our attunement and having built all that trust really comes into play. So we're looking for a sweet spot and that place where a child is not overwhelmed and not understimulated, so that can be engaged in part of our activities and engaged with their peers. So let's talk about some specific examples that we can help children become familiar with to help meet their own sensory needs.
Before we get there, I just want to read the room and take a moment to say, I've seen a couple of us on screen address our own movement needs throughout this experience. We've been learning since 8:30 this morning. So I'm going to offer a quick trick to anybody who might need it as well. The vestibular system can be used as a reset for our regulation, and we can do that pretty easily by moving the head back like this. So what you saw me do earlier, I do it almost subconsciously at this point, is to take your hands in a big sun salutation, but put your head back so your chin is all the way up. Get your hands all the way up to the sky. Breathe in, and then breathe out, bringing your hands back to center. Maybe you wanted to stand up to do that. Maybe you did it in your chair. But believe it or not, that can immediately serve as a reset to our systems. So I just wanted to like interrupt you to say, I've noticed just our own responses as adults when our sensory needs aren't being met. What are we doing to self-accommodate? So what are some things that we can do in the classroom with kids?
Yes. And I honestly don't think we can emphasize enough Like we do it, like we have the autonomy, we have the control to take care of that for ourselves. I chose my chair. Children don't choose the chair that they sit in at school. They don't choose the carpet that they have to sit on, and it might be yucky or feel yucky to them. So really just kind of appreciating that. And again, it doesn't mean that we, anything goes. It just means we can come to this with a place of empathy and understanding and curiosity. So if we kind of go back to the wheel of 8 things, all of our systems, sensory systems, and thinking about it in terms of enhancing or reducing, and appreciate that the same child might want to enhance some things and reduce other things. This is a lot to hold in our mind. But if we have this home base, then we can kind of begin to curate a collection of materials and tools, and really thinking about them as tools. Fidgets are fun. They kind of had a moment where they got a bad rap because I think they were not well understood when they were being implemented everywhere, but really understanding the point of it, and as a fidget as a tool to provide input for a child that needs more input. So just quickly, our list here, we can cover our eyes or our ears. So an eye mask. These noise canceling headphones or noise muffling headphones can be really just like a game changer. I'm thinking about a comment we had earlier where someone said they had a great tool. It was super helpful, but they didn't have enough of them. I don't know a classroom that I watched incorporate these headphones for the first time and didn't say like, oh my gosh, we bought one set, we need 5, because it would be great if they could live in the cozy corner, but you might find that they also need to be in the block area or the place next to the block area where a child wants to be able to work on puzzles, but not have distraction or overwhelm from the sound adjacent to them. So we want places, all of these materials, to have a home, but we also know that they are going to move and be alive and part of the classroom. And so if they all come back to their home, we create routines around that. But we're also attuned educators noticing we might need to embed some of these things in other areas. So some of them require things and some are just strategies. So making a comforting sound can provide that input. Humming or singing, playing with the fidget, squishing some Play-Doh or a squishy stress ball type of thing, stretching, taking a drink. So this is going back to the interoception, taking a drink. You might not be able to take a full nap, but you could lie down and rest, stretch your body. So your sensory systems and those interoception pieces from our foundation of that triangle. Really good stuff. So we're often focused on figuring out a sensory need for one kid that's needing a lot of help. But as teachers, we also have to be attuned to that as a whole group. And one time this often comes up in early childhood settings is at rest. So this is a time of day when teachers are already accommodating for all kinds of different sensory needs. And a common thought is to reduce the light, maybe reduce environmental sounds that could be distracting or disruptive, replacing it with the soothing background noise or music, white noise. We know that different kids have different needs. So while most children benefit from white noise, quiet music, and reduced lights, some kids need to be kind of away from other children, lots of space between the cots, no disruptions. Other kids would be so distracted by feeling separate that they would never feel safe enough to rest. This is another time that teachers are so attuned without even realizing they're addressing sensory needs. We know the kid that loves that real gentle, stroking the hair back from the forehead to help fall asleep. And there's probably another kid that would be like, that's too tickly. And they want those really firm, steady back pats. So just a great example of ways we already do this without thinking about this being a sensory solution. All right, our next reflect, share, and plan, and this is a big one. So if we're thinking about the bottom of our pyramid, and wanting to bring our detective lens to sensory and interoception, imagine a time of day that's regularly frustrating or tricky. So just think back, sometimes it's a time that we might even dread, or like if we could dip out, that would be the time we dip out from. And if you can bring that to mind, kind of, you might even close your eyes and imagine yourself standing there. Grab your detective lens and think about what might be happening for the children during this time. And this is where, like, I don't want anybody to feel like they have to get it right. We just want to be curious about it. We just want to be, yeah, like just willing to think of a different possibility for what might be a root of this behavior. So we have instead of the question mark, we have the wheel here because there's so many different sensory components. So you can kind of tick through them if that's helpful. Is it overstimulating visually? Is there too much auditory input? Is there not enough tactile input? Is there a funky smell? We had a scenario where we had our youngest early childhood bathrooms. We didn't use this section a lot for my pre-K class, but there were benches, and often we would come in this way because then we wouldn't disrupt the children that were napping earlier, and we would wait while a handful of kids used the restroom before we went to rest. And I had this one kiddo that just kept crawling out and around the corner. And I'm like, buddy, you got to stay with us. Like, it's not safe for you to be over there without us. You are choosing to go around the corner. And finally he told me it's because it was stinky in the hallway, because by 2 o'clock, there are enough preschoolers that had not quite hit the toilet that it didn't smell great. And he didn't want to wait in the hallway. And you know what? I didn't blame him. So that was an easy fix once I understood it. But like, my reaction was kind of heightened because it was safety. He needed supervision. But when I understood why he was leaving us, it kind of reframed the whole way that I was willing to problem solve with him. So if there's a time that you can imagine that you can add a lens of either physical need or sensory need, maybe you need to enhance or reduce the child's input. Do you have any curiosities around that? You can drop that into the chat. Scroll back. I'm hearing that crawling on the floor gives a lot of proprioceptive input for sure.
So if anyone has similar struggles to my time in classrooms, group times could often be challenging, especially with a group of children who either were newer to the program, or just, as I would come to find, had different sensory needs, but trying to keep them all on the carpet at the same time felt like herding cats. Or meal times, when again the kids scooting out from the table, standing up while they eat, taking their food somewhere else, not wanting to eat their food, putting their food on someone else's plate, touching, like, meal times have been challenging. And then nap times. I know we kind of revisited that as a group, but historically, sometimes it's hard at nap to meet everyone's needs at the same time. So those are ones that come to mind for me. I'm curious what might be times of day that are frustrating or tricky in terms of children's behaviors for you.
So Stacy's sharing mealtime when it's time to clean up. So I'm thinking that is often, I'm just guessing because I don't know exactly what this looks like, but it's often a little ambiguous, probably a semi-transition. It might be a component of cleanup that feels, maybe there's a sticky, wet, some kind of tactile element that maybe is not appealing. It might be noisy if there's lots of like rustling or chairs getting pushed in or pulled out. Sometimes that scraping sound can be a lot. Again, I'm just guessing, but these are the kind of wonderings we might bring to a moment like this. Oh man, In a class, there's a child who concentrates when he has 5 colored pencils in his hand. And they've tried giving him more or less, and he returns them and points out that one is missing, and he wants 5 that are the same. And for some reason, that meets a need that it sounds like, then they're able to do the next things. But having those 5 pencils in their hand is the just right input that they're needing at that moment. That's fascinating.
Up from nap. Oof, that one's just as hard because some slept not long enough. Some just fell asleep and we have to wake them up and they're not happy that we woke them up. And then transitioning into things that need to come next when their body still really wants to sleep. Sometimes we're in settings where we can let them sleep and sometimes we're not, like something has to happen, so they actually have to wake up. All of those are such an opportunity to see, are the behaviors that we're seeing at their core connected to a sensory mismatch, something that's not right? And then are they also influenced by the situation that's happening, like the social context of what's going on? That can very much be the case, but helping us to see, is there an underlying sensory mismatch that we can address first?
So, Erin, I want to make sure we have time for our emotional and social solutions.
Yes.
But this was such a great, thoughtful opportunity to reflect.
So if we're thinking about this hierarchy of self-regulation and we need to solve for interoceptive needs, then sensory needs, and then we can go to emotional and then behavioral and then cognitive. So let's think about some common emotional needs that aren't connected to sensory. Those things might be missing a family member or a loved one. Those things might be mad at having to come to school when I was having a really great time at home. I didn't want to come. It might be really frustrated with my parent that they took away my favorite toy when I had to go into my classroom. So these probably don't have anything to do with a sensory need, but instead are primarily emotional. But that doesn't mean they're not intense. Many a child who comes in missing a family member, the observable behavior is very intense. So how can we meet some of those needs? What are some emotional solutions? Drawing a picture to then share or give to that loved one, writing them a note, pre-writing skills. It could be the child says it and then the teacher writes it. It could be delivered via a recorded message. Snuggle with something soft, ask for a hug or give a self hug, or look at special photos. The person that I said, high five, you have a family photo album. Having that family photo album in your cozy corner is so powerful because then you've just amped up the benefit of going to your cozy corner because the children know my loved ones are there. When I go to cozy corner, I can look at pictures of my family members. So that is so super powerful. And I love your ideas coming in. Yeah, draw a picture or see their family book. Yeah, please bring those in too. So I do want to share this particular.
Talk to Miss Murray. I'm sending her this video. So
it's set to autoplay. The particular video that you're going to see is Bella. So I was only supporting a classroom for a short period of time. And after I had left that assignment, as you will, it was 2 months later. And Bella was sharing with her teacher that she was missing me. And because I had done this practice with Bella when she was brand new into the classroom I was with her in, we would frequently say, Bella, would you like to hug a teddy bear? Bella, would you like to draw a picture for mommy or daddy? Would you like to send them a note? And so then having used those strategies to share with Bella's family, she then had this interaction with her teacher.
talk to Miss Murray. I'm sending her this video. Tell her you miss her.
I tell you, Miss Mommy.
Oh, tell you see her soon.
I know.
Well, you can write a note too. But
Yeah, she's gonna write you a note, Miss Murray. She's gonna write you a note too.
So what she was saying was, I also want to write her a note. So then she wrote me a note and drew me a picture, and her teacher sent me the video and sent me the photograph of her showing the picture that she made for me. And then it gave me the opportunity to write a note back for her so that I could say, hi, Bella, I miss you so much. Love, Miss Murray. So that's just an example of how children can internalize these strategies and really quickly. I was only in Bella's life for 3+ months. It was at the beginning of the year. I was helping to establish routines and behaviors in that particular classroom. But in only 3 months, we had developed such a routine of what you can do when you miss somebody that then she was asking for those same strategies when she was missing me, and then asked her teacher for those. So don't ever diminish the power of the emotional support strategies that you offer to children in your programs. You've already started entering them in here, so please continue with that. Bring to mind a child with a recurring emotional need, and what are 3 emotional solutions that you might try? So we're asking for specific, solutions, but come up with your own. How do you meet the emotional needs of the children in your care? I do want to offer a connection to Christian's point this morning about hugs. Always ask if that's the solution that they want. Not everyone wants a hug. Would you like a hug? And then that they teach that to each other so that they know sometimes I want a hug, but sometimes I don't. And so even if you think a child almost is always going to be comforted by a hug, ask every single time. Would you like a hug? And then let them respond to you, because that can be very situational, and it is a huge piece of control to allow the child control over who touches their body and when. Yeah, teachers have to be observant to know what solution to offer in that moment. That goes back to that attunement piece. Would they like to hold hands? Mm. That is like a statement for the power of high quality early childhood education. Thank you, Sori, for sharing that. One person creates a family photo album, and then they take the album and look at the photos, and that helps them asking for a hug or looking for sadness in another child. Yeah. Christian said he had to leave. He had a play session happening today. He's also a practicing play therapist. So we'll send our thanks to him later.
Oh, Constance shares that they have a visual to offer children choice around what kind of physical support they might need. So she says they have pictures. They say they have pictures of a hug, a shake, a handshake, and that helps the child signal what would be supportive without having to use our words. So having wow.
Yeah, I was just coming back to a visual of the solution. So sorry, it made the audio play. But when you can connect a visual to the solutions that are available, it gives children that menu of options, right? Do I want to look at a photo album of my family members? Do I want to draw a picture? Do I want to hold hands? Do I want to ask for a hug? But being able to connect that menu of options to a visual choice of some sort, it's very empowering for the children because they get to choose based on those options. So I'm going to move on to social conflict just because we have some great video connected to this one as well. But when we're thinking about that pyramid, interoceptive, that's my physical needs. Am I hungry, thirsty, sick, or tired? My sensory needs, too itchy, too scratchy. What does it taste, smell, feel, look like, sound like? My emotional needs. And then I have behavioral needs, which often come in context behavioral social. So social conflict are the things that happen 8 billion times a day around, he pushed me. I want to play with that. That's mine. I want that. You took my turn. So many different social conflict scenarios when children are just learning how to play and exist with one another. So we can help children solve these social conflict situations by providing those clear visuals, reviewing them when they're calm, providing specific praise when you see it happen, and then practicing the solutions together. So I'll refer back to Christian's section when it was the timer. And when the children were using the timer successfully, using that praise. Oh, we had a problem. You said, could we set a timer? You set the timer, and then you offered the material to the next student. That worked so well. Like, you did that. You came up with that solution. You executed that solution, and then you offer that specific praise that you did it. That's pretty powerful. So in these examples, we're going to see what could you do to facilitate that. One might be to offer your solution cards in every interest area, and then to go through those solution cards as a class. So in this example, we went through the solution card options every single day at morning meeting, adding one every couple of days. We took several days to talk about the same one usually. So what you're going to see in this video is that I had actually just supported a different child through finding a solution to his problem. He wanted to play with sand. Sand was full. There wasn't one available to him. So he came over to me with the cards and we went through what a solution could be. But then he was waiting to implement it because the children were in the bathroom. So he's off waiting to implement it. And then another child was curious about watching us. And then this is what she came up to me and did.
Can I help talking about these? Okay. This one says, look, get a teacher, because that's the girl and that's the teacher. Get a teacher. What does this one say?
Ignoring.
Ignore, yep. What's this one say? Trade. Yep, they're trading. So they said, hey, here, I'll give you my robot if you give me your boat. They're trading. What does this one say?
Share.
Share, yes. They said, we have lots of dinosaurs. I'll share with you. So he gave him one. He gave him the blue dinosaur. They're sharing.
I'll give you my pink dinosaur. I'll give you my blue dinosaur. I'll give you my green dinosaur.
Yeah, they're sharing those. What's this one? Get a timer.
Get a timer.
Right? And that says, okay, your turn can be 2 minutes. And when the timer goes off, it's my turn. So get a timer. What's this one?
Birthday.
Ask nicely. We didn't go over this one yet in circle, but ask nicely.
Hey, can I have your balloon?
Yeah, so he's asking, can I please have one?
Can I have one?
Yeah, ask nicely.
Can I have one? Yeah.
Yeah, what's next?
Yeah, I don't know. Tray.
Oh no, look. This boy is about to stomp on the sandcastle. So this boy says, please stop.
Please stop.
Stop. So that card says, please stop.
Please stop.
Yep. How about this card?
Yes.
What does that say?
Play together.
Play together, Jose.
Play together.
Yeah, play together.
Wait and take turns.
Wait and take turns. High five, Jose. You got it.
I do got
You know the solution. So if you have a problem when you're playing, you can get these cards and you can look at these solutions and figure out if there might be a solution to your problem. Okay? Aishani, can you please put this back in the math center bin? Back in the math center bin. Thank you. Ooh, you're chopping that up into little pieces, Bella. You cleaned up?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you're waiting to ask for a turn?
Yeah.
Yes.
I need my own thing.
Yes. So do you want to ask Caleb and Yasiel something? What do you want to ask them?
Play I said.
Do you want to say, can I have a turn?
Yes.
Yasiel, are you finished with the sand? Do you want to play with the house? Are you finished? No. Caleb, are you finished? No. They're not finished yet.
Okay.
So we asked them for a turn. You said, please. What's another thing that you could do? What's another solution? They don't want to leave yet. They still want to play.
All of these.
What's something else we could try?
From another house.
What if we get a timer?
Yes.
Oh, you know what? It looks like he's finished.
Yes.
So just a couple of things there. That particular child, Jose, needed constant reinforcement of the solutions. And he didn't always know which one to choose, but he knew that they were available. He knew we were going to go through them and that we could ask for them together. But that internalization of effort and control, when I noticed that he knew one of them by the picture, and I said, you know that, wait and take turns. And he said, yes, I do. I know that. Like, he's saying, I know how to help solve my own problems. I know some of these solutions. So the point here is practicing them in moments of calm. Ashani brought them to me because she was curious. She was like, oh, what are these things? And we learned about them in a moment of calm. So then when she's in a moment of conflict with a peer, there's a greater likelihood of accessing that strategy because we've reviewed it together.
Goes out, then it's Jose's turn with the airplane. That was a good suggestion. Bella, are you the one who thought of the timer? Yeah, that's one of our solution cards.
So then just offering that descriptive positive praise when they try one of their solutions and it worked. You're like, oh my gosh, you picked a solution and it was a solution that worked and everyone was happy about it. So as we're coming into our last 5 minutes, we might combine this, Christine, to our last one. But if you have any ideas about situations where there's peer conflict, and I already saw in the chat, it looks like some of you use these solution cards already. But think about ways where there's social conflict and what solutions and tools to support those solutions can you offer in your programs.
Someone says they have your exact same cards. They recognize the cards.
Yeah, so these practices, it's hard to say they originate with the pyramid model, but I know a lot of them, we utilized NCPMI, National Center for Pyramid Model Innovations, and yet those were some earlier illustrations. So clearly, let's build on the things that have research behind them and work, and offering visuals to scaffold those social problem solving is clutch. Sharing toys. Oh, there's a song that they use to help resolve conflict and come to a solution.
There was a really thoughtful comment about how culture and physical affection intersect and how that can be tricky when we're, really asking to think about consent and permission, asking permission before we hug or engage with children with physical affection. So yeah, this is a tricky thing to navigate, but it's important to acknowledge, and I really appreciated them bringing that up.
So to pull some of it together, because we still need to get to our secret sauce, is having everything together in a visual menu is really empowering for children. So being able to say, this is your menu of options. And once we've introduced them to you in moments of calm, helping them self-select. I think that moving my body right now, I think that going through the sensory solutions, I think that breathing, helping the child to initiate the strategy that meets their need, oof, that is unbelievably empowering. So then the really not so secret ingredients, but it is definitely the special sauce to what we've been talking about today, is what do we need to do to actually make this happen? We need daily practice, and we need to be present in the moment at hand and seek connection with children. So what does that look like broken up? Daily practice of self. We can't teach anything we don't know. We need to know the breathing exercises. We need to know the big body movements. We need to understand how to look at our expressions and identify our feelings. So we need to be familiar with the tools and materials first and to know how to do them. Also for our own sensory benefit, try those sensory solutions, any sensory solution, see how it affects you and your sensory state. Practice one-on-one, identify one child a day. Spend 5 minutes with them going through the components of the problem-solving plan. All that means is keep a list. And every day, one at a time, you're going to invite people over. You know, Jose, let's go over to Cozy Corner. Do you want to visit Cozy Corner with me? Usually, a child loves that one-on-one attention, right? Usually, if you have a good relationship, good rapport with them, hey, Jose, you want to go visit Cozy Corner? Yeah, let's do it, Miss Murray. So we go over to Cozy Corner and we just peruse the options that are there. Take advantage of the moment. I notice you look like this. See if we can connect to feelings. Have we tried all the breathing exercises? Is there one that you don't know? Do the breathing exercises. Have we done these movements? Do you feel like your body needs one of these movements right now? You could try the body movements. Flip through the solution cards. But whatever the tools that you have in your cozy corner need to be practiced one-on-one in times of calm. We need to be present and seek connection. And then finally, being able to do this in group settings. So being able to introduce the social solution cards, breathing exercises, movement exercises during whole group times, which could be circle, meals, transitions, outside, nap time, personal care routines, and infusing those with your presence in the moment and your true connection with the child. That brings us back. This is what we've done. We've understood the why. We've gathered all of our ingredients. We've practiced in all these different ways. Practiced on ourselves, practiced one-on-one, practiced in group time. And now you've created this classroom community where children are developing self-regulation skills. I feel like I want like sparkles going off right now. Like that's the like we want a community of children that are reinforcing and building their self-regulation skills. So to help you put this into practice in your program, we offered this inspiration into action guide, and we've really done most of the questions as a group all the way up until this point. But we'd like to ask you as well, who can you share your learning with from today so that they can become partners in collaboration and a commitment to this change in your classroom or in your program? And just a quote from Brene Brown, creativity embeds knowledge so that it can become practice. And we move what we learn from our heads to our hearts through our hands, and we're born makers, and creativity is the ultimate act of integration. It's how we fold our experiences into our being. And just ways to interact and find more resources about a place-based solution. We've actually done a whole series at Becker's on self-regulation, starting with an overview, inviting in an occupational therapist, a speech language pathologist, and Christian coming up in April. And then we're going to do a webinar in May, pulling it all together. So we have more resources. If this is a topic that is interesting to you, we have even more resources available for you to continue your own learning. That's it, Pamela.